Hello, we have reached episode 10 of the Racco Strength and Fitness podcast, the Eli Manning episode. So what I'd like to talk about today is going to end up being a two-part episode. So what I'll do is I'll upload this video, and then when I finish the next one, I'll put them in a nice little playlist for you guys, so it's nice and easy to follow my line of thought here, okay? So obviously today, of course, I want to talk about strength training. But specifically, I'd like to talk about the benefits in strength training for females. This first video is going to stay on the more superficial side, so some of the more obvious stuff, some of the stuff you can see in the mirror. In the second video, I'll take a little bit more of a deeper dive into some of the other health benefits, okay? Obviously, you lift weights, you get stronger. But what I would like to actually focus on here is improvements in strength for women without getting, big, bulky. Because I do realize this is a concern for some, if not most, or most, if not some, women. Now, I have mentioned this before, but again, I want to dive a little bit deeper into this and kind of explain why this should not be a concern of anyone's to actually prevent you from strength training. As I've said before, men and female bodies do not respond the exact same to the same stimulus. No, that does not mean that men work harder in the gym. No, that does not mean that, the female body was not built for strength training. Those are both absolutely ridiculous statements that are completely false and untrue. What it does come down to are our hormones, specifically our sex hormones of testosterone and estrogen. Now, I'm sure most of you have at least heard of these two hormones, testosterone being the male sex hormone, estrogen being the female. But just because, one's male specific, one's female specific doesn't mean that, both males and females don't produce both of them. In fact, both male and female bodies produce both estrogen and testosterone, just not in the same quantities. And here's where the key difference comes in. Now, throughout the day, our hormones fluctuate based off of, our eating schedules, sleeping schedules, food, activity, whatever, basically everything. But at any given point throughout the day, the female body produces about 10 to 20 times less testosterone than the male body. Due to this lack of testosterone production, it automatically becomes more difficult for females to pack on the same amount of muscle that a male would or can. So for an example, if I have a brand new, never touched a weight before, female client and male client, and they want to do everything together. They want to have the same training paradigm. They want to have the same sleep schedule, have the same eating habits, they work out exactly as hard as each other. The male and female client would still have two different outcomes, and it's purely based on the testosterone levels of the male being higher and the female being lower. The male will just be able to put on more muscle. So my point here in the first section is I don't want women to be afraid of strength training because they think that they're going to get overly big, overly bulky, overly muscular. Now, are there women out there who are big and muscular and bulky? Absolutely. But that was their goal. They had the goal of going out there and adding muscle and getting, jacked, ripped, buff, whatever you want to call it. And who knows? Some people out there are incredibly large. Maybe they had a little, pharmaceutical enhancement as well. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that no one gets accidentally huge. It's a desired outcome, especially if you're female. So I don't want that to be the reason that you guys, skip out on strength training or are afraid of strength training or just never even, start or try. Probably another, reason, but I believe it's important enough and potentially misunderstood enough to actually be addressed. So I'm going to roll with it a little bit. Obviously, strength training is an exercise. You exert effort, you burn calories, you'll burn fat. What most people may be unaware of, though, is strength training is actually more beneficial for long-term fat loss than excessive cardio. Obviously, you can burn a ton of calories running, 5, 10, 15 miles. Now, are you going to be able to run that much 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week for the rest of your life? Probably not. If you're looking to burn a bunch of calories and maybe drop a couple pounds quick, running is 100%, a viable option. Yes, you can go out there, burn a bunch of calories, and do it quickly. However, it's generally not a sustainable method of maintaining a desired or your ideal fat level, weight, whatever term you wish to use. Strength training obviously burns calories during the workout. But what strength training does that cardio doesn't do, and which will help aid in that long-term, we'll call it weight or fat management, it helps increase your metabolism even when you're not exercising. It does this by increasing your muscle mass. You increase the overall mass of your body. Muscle takes up space, it has weight, it needs to be provided energy, which means that your body now needs to burn more calories just to sustain your day-to-day activity because you have more muscle. This calorie expenditure throughout the day is called your basal metabolic rate. All right, fancy term for how many calories you burn when you're basically doing nothing, just breathing and blinking. The more calories you burn at rest, the more calories you'll burn throughout the day, and the more calories you burn throughout the day, the easier it will be to maintain a calorie deficit. All right, and that's burning more calories than you consume, and that's basically the recipe for fat loss. Now, I'm a huge proponent of strength training to prevent, overcome, rehab, basically all injuries. If I can explain this in as simple terms as possible, most injuries come about through some sort of trauma. Okay, now that could be a large amount of trauma, like a car crash or a fall, or it could be prolonged micro trauma that causes something like tendonitis or carpal tunnel, shin splints, etc. Now, I'm a firm believer that the stronger you are, the better you are able to deal with these traumas. Now, I'm not going to say that, you're going to ever be strong enough to catch a moving car or anything like that during a car crash. However, maybe that fall you had when you broke your wrist, maybe if you were a little bit stronger, your body would have been able to absorb that energy, that impact a little bit better, and maybe you could have avoided that broken wrist or avoided, the injury, the bruise, or whatever. Maybe you never would have developed, tennis elbow if your body had been stronger, if your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments all had been strong enough to handle that repeated motion of your tennis swing, baseball swing, pitching motion, golf swing, whatever. Look, I'm not here, saying that strength can overcome everything, but I am saying that by improving your overall strength, you're giving yourself, your body, a better ability to handle any sort of outside stresses that may come its way and potentially cause injuries. All right, so this concludes part 1 of the, why females should strength train or why they shouldn't avoid strength training. Be on the lookout for part 2. I'm going to take a little bit deeper dive into some of the more, health related. Remember, not just the aesthetic, looking good, preventing injury, that kind of stuff. Stuff you can't see in the mirror, a little deeper dive. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more training content in the future. Happy training, everyone, and remember, grab the bull by the tusks.